Okay, so this is me. I'm right now in Toronto. The idea here is that despite all that, experience in life, I mean, basically an engineering side, electronics in aviation, that's what avionics is about. And like I said, I've lived in a couple of countries actually, like I was studying in the UK as well, and had good time out there. I was in Pakistan. I did my engineering there with the Americans coming in and teaching us aeronautical engineering from yeah, they were Air Force officers, Air Force Institute of Technology, Colorado, I suppose. And then I have been posted to Kuwait, and the war happened in front of me. I saw all that happening, 1990. It was historic times when Iraq actually invaded that country. Okay, and I lived more than 4 years almost in Germany and saw the European market there and understood those places very well. The Berlin Wall came down, and East and West Berlin became together. It was a historic moment there. I was there. Been in Canada for more than 20 years. Now also, like I said, I got my Florida state driver license as well, and I am a US guy that way. So I keep hopping in between. It's an interesting world. And like I said, while I look around, I try to upgrade myself if I can. And there are a couple of certifications that I did myself, and I teach them. Apart from the PMI certification, there are some interesting fields like Sigma with green belt, black belt, master black belt, ITIL. There are Scrum. I am a Scrum Master, Scrum Developer certified as well, and Scrum Product Owner certified. So that is something I teach. Um, I recently did two American certifications, which are the latest, for the sake of knowledge. They are in the cybersecurity field because this is a very upcoming field. Everybody is really very worried about cybersecurity nowadays. And there's a company called Accolade, Akyllade, and they are the first guys to provide like PMI certifications based on the National Institute of Standards or Technology of the US, the cybersecurity framework. So there are two certifications, fundamentals and practitioner, and they're so new that one of them, practitioner one, was actually just right now in the beta mode. So perhaps that was what was very challenging for me as well, but I just finished that and got that credential too. So this continues on, and it's my passion to interact with people and learn from them and exchange knowledge and notes with them as well. And we do this globally, so really there is no boundaries to it. My class is sometimes having many multinational people coming in from different continents joining in, and that is interesting. Right now, we're talking about portfolio. So I suppose who are interested in portfolio, you guys have done program management, project management. Now you're interested to learn more about the portfolio part, of course. Organizations are developing towards that. And yeah, I think that's totally understandable. So naturally, I talked about the breakdown for this particular session. So I think there I made it into sections. There are 8 sections to this. And the first one is I'm going to take on is talk about the exam in general. And because if somebody who wants to take on an exam, for example, right, then they can, and they will ask me questions as to what will come in an exam or what is the exam content outline. That's the next question people often, will check you for. So maybe I'll talk a little bit about that, and then we'll go into the concept building. But before even conceptual building happens, I think you might have noted here that I use the word KAVI here. And this is my thinking that when I teach, I use this technique of myself. I like this. I made this technique actually. Kinestatics, audio, visual, and iterative. So kinesthetic means that I ask you guys to do something on your side. Maybe you think something, or you think it in your mind. I say, okay, can you imagine a triangle, and think about making it where what do you think the mission and the vision would be at? Would they be at the bottom or would they be at the top? So this is something that you are now getting involved with. That is kinesthetics. Audio, you're listening to me. Visual, you're watching things around on the screen. And the iterative part is very important. That means I try to get the context first. So you talk about something, they say, what is the context to that? If you get the bigger picture first, and then you go back and revisit it with that context in mind, that's the kind of going back and making it a little more deeper and better. And that is the iteration part, the iterative part of it. Okay. So those things are important. So OPM terminology is a part of that technique where you think about the bigger pictures. And then you see where does portfolio management come into play and how important it is linked to the what? To the organizational strategies. And then the human beings have to take on the mantles for doing certain things. So it's not just there that paper you write down a strategy. Who's going to do it, man? That's the next question. It's you guys, I mean, people. And therefore, this thought of the managing of the portfolio, so the roles and responsibilities, and then seeing where PMI is coming in from. PMI is our friend, actually, right? I mean, PMI has done so much for the project management uh, propagations in terms of offering us the recipes, how to handle projects, how to handle programs, how to handle portfolio, right? And I think we just need to just go and receive it. So how it evolved and mattered is something just as a trivia. 1969 PMI was created in Pennsylvania, if you want to just go back to that point. And then in 1996, the first PMBOK came into the world. What is PMBOK? Project Management Body of Knowledge. And therefore, this was a body of knowledge, not even a book of knowledge. And that means that, like for example, I give a very simple example that you make tea and Michael makes tea and Jenna makes tea and Jose makes tea and Angela makes tea, but they're making it in different styles. We all guys get together and we come back after our meetings with a recipe that we all agree that if we follow these steps, we'll have a very nice and a tasty tea. That's the effect of that. So, this is the same thing, making tea, like making a project work right, creating the right taste for for the people who will use that tea, will drink that tea, enjoy that tea. It's not making the tea that is enough, because making of tea is going to get cold if nobody comes and drinks it. Nobody enjoys that flavor, correct? So it's not always about the output. It's not always about the output. What is it important? It is output which is converted into outcomes. So that why are you interested in outcomes? So that the benefit starts to flow. Why are you interested in the benefits to flow? Because now the keyword in the industries today is value. Okay. So let's say it's me who's trying to seek a job somewhere as a project manager or a program manager, and they discuss things with me and they want to see my concepts. They will ask me questions. There will be no PIM box there. There will be nothing. But how I explain this? What is the importance of, creating a professional or hiring a professional in their own organization who will not let the ball go drop, because we have the knowledge, information, and therefore the value will not be tainted. Value will not be marred. Value will not be compromised at the end. That's very important. That is the end result we're talking about. So that's why the portfolio management PMI has a very clear perceptive here. We'll talk about that. And then what is the heart of it all in the projects ultimately? And if the projects start failing, I just talked about the value to you guys. That will not be there because the outputs will fail, outputs are bad, outcomes will also not be ensured properly. The outcomes are not there, then benefits will not flow. The benefits don't flow, the value will not be created. And so we got to work with that thought. And obviously, once we are creating all these effects, the results, what's happening? This is this resources getting involved. But are the resources like limited or unlimited is the next question, which is obviously commonsensical, but we say no, we don't have unlimited resources. And then there are different types of resources. There are resources which are critical, and there are sometimes non-critical. So in that case, then we have to be very prudent about handling these resources. So there is this multitasking sometimes we have to do too. So, and then we'll talk about the ingredients for the portfolio and go on to talk about how important it is for the C-suite to get involved. What is a C-suite? People who are higher level decision makers in organizations. Okay, that's the executive involvement. And what if somebody asks, what's the keywords for different things? I would say to you that for portfolio management, it is about capacity management. That's the thought. Okay. And the section 4, I just talked about it. I just talked about the keyword value. You can't come into a PfMP course and say, hey, what is Assad talking about? It's nothing to do with PfMP. The word value, it doesn't have anything to do with PMP or a PMP or PGMP or PfMP. Oh no, my friends, you're way off. You're way off. You have to think about value. You have to think about creating that value for the organization to what? Through limited resources, get that common understanding in your mind. And to get that limited resources to be utilized, the next word is that what is urgent for us? Mhm. And therefore, this prioritization concept comes in. And therefore, the portfolio managers come in. And therefore, the capacity management comes in. See how it's linked up? So you understand that. That means what is your organizational goals? What are the strategy that you guys have? And how our projects, the ones we select, will be able to contribute that value so that we can do this alignment to the strategic levels. That's the whole idea. The moment you get that, then there is so many slides. I mean, like I've given you so much documentation to read. Well, I mean, this is a lifetime thing. You see, continue to read, learn, and move. But if you have the core concepts well in your mind, everything will be very much in your context. And that's what I want you guys to have. Okay, so the section 7 about limiting resources, handling that. And then now, of course, there are organizations which are using PMOs as well, project management offices. And in that context, the portfolio management comes into good play. Right. So some people will take the exam, some people may say, I'm still not eligible, depending how you are at this point. But this is what PMI's requirements are. Every exam they have a requirement. Okay. Now in this PfMP, like I said, this is the highest one. So they need at least your involvement with some business somehow in your life with 8 years. That's called professional business experience. And within and even beyond that, you can add anything like past 15 years that you were involved, depending if you had no degree or a degree or a post-grad degree and all that stuff. Okay. So naturally, if you had a post-grad degree, then maybe you need to show your experience like 3 years portfolio management experience. If you had a regular degree, then it was like 4 years. And if you had no degree, then it is more. It is like 7 years. All right. To make it simple for you guys. So everybody's different. So I don't know where you stand, what you have. That's your business. But I just wanted to let you know that. And the fee is the highest. I don't think there is any exam in the PMI world which is more expensive than PfMP at this point. Yeah. And if you are a member, it's worth it to get that discount. You see, that's a pretty 20% discount almost, right? Pretty good. And that means that if you pay $139 for your PMI membership, you get back a discount of $200. So actually you're saving money and also getting 1 year of membership. Then the question always is that if I were to apply again for PMI, supposing some people said, yeah, I did try to go for the exam earlier, but now many years have passed. I'm just giving a general statement now here, okay? And what do I do now? Well, I mean, there is an expiry to your level of 1 year experience, no, 1 year of application for PMP, and you have to apply again. And once you apply again, they want you to write your applications, submit them back. Similarly, if you're doing a PGMP, same thing happens. If you're going for a PfMP even for the first time, same thing will happen. So the hardest write-ups are basically on the PfMP side. But anyway, I mean, like the part here is that when you write your application to PfMP exam to PMI, they would like to see whether you had the understanding of doing the portfolio management with the concepts of their domains. You see, they have some domains. I'll explain that to you. And they have to address this, that how would I be able to rationalize this, that when I did something that was to operationalize those concepts or to apply those or to implement those. And with your experience, whatever your experience was, you have to maybe write it down as a relevant example there and work with that. So that they would rather ask you to say, I did this or I did that, and so on and so forth. So it shows to you like you going and pleading your case to PMI. It's not about their $1,000. Some people say, oh, no, no, no. PMI says, look, you can keep your $1,000 to yourself. We want you to be explaining to us, how are you eligible for the exam? Simple. So whenever you do an exam, like whether it's PMP or a PGMP, or you have PfMP, or you have RMP, well, all those exams, ACP, you have to push in an application. And there is some discipline to that. So as far as the discipline part is concerned, I suppose, I guess, I'm going way beyond the thought here that if, for example, you were to address things like operationalizing the portfolio concepts, or what the concepts applied, or what was achieved out of that. So I'll give an example to you. Right, so these are some of those domains that working with, and so say strategy management, right? Portfolio strategy management. So when you will say that I implemented the portfolio management processes to ensure alignment with the organizational strategy, you could give an example there. And then again, when you conducted the regular portfolio reviews to balance the risk, the benefits, the costs, ensuring the resource optimization, of course, because that's the whole idea here. It's about capacity management, how you did that. Or if you were involved with using some kind of PMIS, like portfolio management information system tools. There are many now in the world. So maybe you were using some of them, and whatever they were, if you were using some things to get a result, you could boast about it. Similarly, you could address about your thoughts on the governance and performance. And obviously, there are compliances that must be instituted into the organizations. And how did you contribute towards those? And how were you able to track things? Because KPIs would mean that you have the metrics to be able to track things, make people accountable for it. That's about governance. That's about bringing in the discipline that should things be not there as supposed to be, that means there would be gaps. And that would mean that you might have applied some corrective action to bring performance back in line with what the expectations of the stakeholders were, right? Then I'm talking about stakeholders. So you need to understand the expectations of the stakeholders through how? Through communications, collaboration, keeping them engaged. They could be at all different levels. They could be your level with other project managers. Supposing if you were a project manager, it could be above you, the senior executives. It could be people outside that you're dealing with. You have to sometimes, there are external agencies and all those. So there is this negotiation and mismatch perceptions and conflicts occur, and you need to understand that you have to align everything with reference to your organizational interests. It's nothing to do with one department interest. It has nothing to do with the ego of one senior person in the company. Never is. Never is. So those have to be kept in mind. And then we're talking about the risk. Obviously, risk management associated at all levels, and the mitigation that might be, because the negative risks are the threats that we are avoiding. So you have to be careful there and avoid your portfolio from the adverse effects when we talk about the negative risks. So those things are there for you to address when you do your write-ups for your application. I'm still on the topic of applications, right? This is your enablers, which will help you to apply to PMI in case you ever want to take a PfMP exam. So I am a guy who wants to go to the fundamentals, basics, because unless you have your fundamentals strong, somebody tells me, "Oh, Asad, how do you get these kind of certification? Like you have almost more than 15, 16 certifications today." I said, "I don't know. I'm an old guy now. I forget everything." But my point is that if my core concepts are good, I try to link things up, and then I apply them like more of a common sense. And there are books and there are tons of materials, and your internet is full of information. But the problem is that it's too much of information that overloads you. You have to go and understand what are the key things around. So the base comes into play. So what are the organizations looking like in general terms? All the time, organizations serve some markets. It doesn't matter whether you are an educational organization or you are a commercial organization or your governmental organization. There are markets. Market is a symbolic term. There always are clients and they're recipients to what you are offering them. Okay. And then this market is a very ferocious thing. It's that animal carry on. It's never sitting. It's very fidgety. It asks you to bend. And you have to bend to improve on the shareholder values. That's the whole idea. So next step is what? Next step is to grow. Grow yourself and grow with the right strategies which are productive. Right? See this philosophy connecting together? So we need to say, well, we need to build our company. It's not isolated. We have to improve our cost structures. We have to improve our resource utilizations. Why are we doing all that? Why? That's the next question. Ultimately, to increase the customer value, right? And hence, changes happen. So we need to manage this all. It's not like you just put the car on an auto drive and leave it and it'll go and take you to the destination. No. On the road, conditions will change and your auto cruise control has to be off. You have to change, you have to adapt. And that's called that strategic micro strategies have to be created. And based on that, the macro tactics has to come in place. It's a little deep. And that's where the organizational project management comes into play. I'll show you what OPM is. And it is comprising portfolio management, under which we have programs and projects and operations, and we have to manage those too, right? So it's operational management as well as program management and projects management and all that thing. It's all tied up. But where does it all start from? What is the fountain? What is the source? The source is always the vision. So if I have a company which is dealing with food, my company vision will be to be a part of people's lives by offering tasty food with high quality innovation at affordable prices anywhere in the world. This is a very succinct, very high level, all encompassing vision. Then the question is of the mission. What is at hand? To be one of leading food companies in the world, admired for its brands, innovation, and results contributing to a better and sustainable world. See? So now we have that mission. And then we look at what am I doing to reach that mission or to be able to achieve the vision. Then I say, how can I do that? How can I improve on my growth of my company as well as my productivities? And those are the places how the part, this is a strategic part of it. And therefore, we will push in place, we will select our portfolios and programs and all that. If you understood this big picture, then your mind becomes suddenly very clear. Oh, okay, so everything has to be in place. And I know now that I can differentiate between other managements. What's the difference between project management and what is the difference between program management and portfolio management and so on and so forth? And what is the relationship with the strategic objectives? So you think about that. And obviously, the litmus test is to be able to see whether am I going to be making sure that if I take on those efforts or all those initiatives in the company or the organization, which will maximize the benefits for the organization. And obviously, you create this effect of utilization of your resources in a manner that maximizes the people to enable them to complete something that they start. Because if you have not done the resource management correctly, how will that happen? So there are always this limiting resources available, right? Not available, but you face them. You understand the concept of limiting resources. If you have only 2 testers and you have to create 5 testing efforts, you are in trouble. On the other hand, you have non-limiting resources as well. The non-limiting resources is the ones that you have many coders, but you have less testers. So which is the limiting resource now? The coder or the tester? The testers. Then can we think about utilizing some of the coders to make them learn some test scripts, right? And make them like a defensive capacity of the non-limiting resources, of which we have plenty. That's like how you think about it. So maximize the value of the projects and understand this, that it is very important to understand the voice of the market. Why? Because you want to create the value at the end of the day, right? So if you carry on doing projects and creating some results out there which are not needed by them, not really. I mean, you're not using the right projects. You're completing them, but not in the right order also. And obviously, portfolio management is looking at a lot of babies You are the mother with quadruplets born together, things like that. Imagine these simple examples, never written in a book anywhere. And they want to have the feet together or look after their needs. How are you looking? I mean, don't do the bottlenecks. Try to be ready with things. And portfolio management is a success to the contribution made by the PMO. In case you have a PMO, then bring it into active force. You get that? So I hope you got the flavor for my initial talk, because that was very, very important. Like we say, when you open the innings of a game, the opening of the innings is so important, how you set it up. Now I'm ready to take any question you have at this point for things I've talked so far. I'm going to go into deeper details, of course, but right now, are you good so far?
Good, thank you.
Okay. Right. So where do you study? You study things like from PMI. And what to study in PMI, if you were to do a PMP exam or something, I would recommend to you go and do PMBOK 6 and PMBOK 7. Now those are the places where you start with. But in portfolio management, you start with the standard for the portfolio management. The latest one is 4th edition at this point. And if you looked at the numbers here, 25% or 25%, that means the strategic alignment and the portfolio performance. 50% of your exam of the portfolio management is about these two alone, 50% of your exam. And then comes in next favorite, which is about the governance. And we can't forget the risk and communications. I call it the RC, risk and communications. GRC, governance, risk, communication. So 50% of exam is all about this thought here that you have to think about strategy, understand that, and then set up your portfolio to align with it. So these two thoughts here, strategic alignment and the portfolio performance on that, 50%. And then the GRC. What is GRC? Governance, risk, communications. Okay, this is your exam now. So let's talk a little more about the task which you were expected to learn and know on your own. Of course, I will cover them up in my course in a generic way, but they address certain times some things around there, but that is not the only thing that you are only going to stay around. You can go back and do your due diligence and do some self-studies. So, for example, the concept of strategic alignment would be what? It means that continue to align all the components of the portfolio. Oh, right. There are portfolio components. What are components of portfolio? I didn't know that. Portfolio is the highest place, right? So it has to have its elements, sub-elements, and those are what? What are the components of the portfolio? Anybody can tell me that?
Projects, operations, and programs.
There you go. You got it. You got it. How hard was that? And when we talked about the word align, so how would you know the alignment if you don't know what is your reference? Correct? So you are aligned to something which is old and stale and outdated. You are on a wrong track, man. Go back and do more elicitation, work with people, understand what are the tunes of the times, and therefore your priorities should be accordingly. That's a commonsensical thing. That's a commonsensical thing. Therefore, your recommendations to these scenarios are important on your portfolio, how it looks like. That's your baby that you're working on. So identify the prioritization tasks. Who say that? Legislations change. There could be dependencies. Maybe your current situation isn't really good because you did not capture the market conditions well, your ROIs are poor. You might to do a strategic fit again, and then push your initiatives and accordingly, your endeavors accordingly. So rank your strategic priorities according to those and work with the key stakeholders because they are more closer at the higher levels to those goals that they want to achieve for the organizations. And see where you stand at this point. Task number 4 is about that, existing portfolio components. And create those portfolios in terms of saying, if I can review this, if I can prioritize this, if I can change that. In the context of what? What are the environments throwing to us? You see, it's a battle of two E's. One E is called the environment, ENVIRONMENT, environment. And the other E is called the enterprise. That is your organization. And now there is an interplay between the first E with the second E. So what are the elements of the first E, which is environment? The environment has threats and environment has opportunities. What are the elements of the other E, which is your enterprise? It has its strengths and it has its weaknesses. And that was the ball game of SWOT analysis. So if you go into an interview, I can bet my hat that maybe sometimes the employer will be interested to know your concepts. You apply for a PG, program management work or something like that, or a senior project manager somewhere, and they ask you a question about risk. And they say, hey, what is the tool when you identify the risk? Your answer should be one of them is SWOT analysis. And the keyword would be that because every enterprise is different with their strengths and weaknesses, so their threats and opportunities, the way they will be handled will be different. And therefore, this whole concept comes into play where you're talking about the SWOT analysis and risk analysis in context of your strategic alignment as well. Therefore, you need to understand the impacts that will have, and we need to change things, and we want to continue doing it, something not in a short term, but sustainability. Okay. I was reading through ASU's mission and all that, and there is a big deal here on sustainability. Your own organization is very clear about it. And you create a roadmap with key stakeholders, understand that. And those are the thoughts very much out there, which is good. What must be done first versus what must be done next, and so on and so forth. And then while we are doing it, we do it with a structure. We have steering committees, we have governance boards, universities have their policies and procedures and authorities and all that happening. So there has to be the established model, governance model, nice fancy word. So the components which come in, they have to be authorized way. You can't do ad hoc. Okay, can I take this project on and do it? Who's, how, why? There was no rationale. You just did it on a personal whim. No, that's not governance. You have to have standards. You have to protocols, rules, best practices, and those are the things which are a part, which is not, which will make you because you want to establish a consistent practice on your portfolio. And I think, and that comes in not alone. You have to do the stakeholder engagement and do the proper communication and create the visibility. When I say information management, whether it is at the program level, whether it is at the project level, whether it is at the portfolio level, it doesn't matter. PMI uses the word PMIS, Project Management Information System. Whether you're doing Agile with Jira or you're doing it, tools like Microsoft Project or Microsoft, like Asana or Master Task Master. So many of those guys, there are there. So what are you doing with all those tools really is to create that visibility. And obviously, we are thinking of prioritizations and using the OPAs. What is OPAs are called the organizational process assets. Those guys who are PMPs, they understand when I say that word. Some of the keywords for OPAs are like templates, policies and procedures of the organization, historical information. Okay. Those are those lessons learned, very important part of the OPA. You pull the drawer and you find certain things there which can help you to create something, then use it. Now there's students of mine who are, I teach PMP so much. And every time people go and pass their exam and they say, thank you, you gave us the concepts. And that was more important to us. It didn't matter whether it was PMBOK 6 or PMBOK 7. We didn't care after that because we knew the question and we understood the essence of what was being asked and gave an answer to that because of the concept. So you understand the concept of OPA is very much valid at every level. It's not only just at the project level. It is at the program level, it is at the portfolio management level, and they're talking about this to ensure the effective and efficient portfolio management. They want you to have that idea in your head. Effectiveness is different from efficiency. People don't understand that either. You can be process related to efficiency. Effectiveness is with reference to the result of those processes. There's a difference between the two things. And then make recommendations to get the approvals because that's all governance. We're talking about governance, okay? And who does that? The decision makers, whoever they might be. So if you do not communicate with them, you're not following a procedure there. You're not following their process. So that we can be able to do that right. And then whose baby is this? You have to look after that. You are that mother of all these projects and programs. They are your babies. Make a roadmap and do the documentations and the deliveries accordingly. Ensure those. Because you're talking about a word called artifacts. Artifacts? What are artifacts? I recommend the concept being built by the going onto an archaeological site someday where people are digging. Are they mad? Why are they digging with so much expensive materials out there? Well, they're like trying to find out how the Greek civilization looked like or how they lived. Okay, so what are they digging? For pots and pans to get an idea. That's called artifact. It's like reliving that history. So what are you creating as your artifact will be one day history. Everybody is going through that. Every day, yesterday was a history. New day, yesterday was a history. So that's the concept. Keyword. And what does it lead to? Artifacts lead to artifact management. How do you do that? Through change management system. You create a change management system. Because there will be versions of the deliverables as well. So maybe you're adding features and functionalities to your current system and moving in on because you want to match the voice of the market. What are you doing? You're changing the configuration. So you need to add the configuration management system with that. That's artifacts. So you have to continue to activate the components in that alignment. And you have to collect the data for that. And data then has to be converted into information by contextualization so that you can make the decisions. Monitor the portfolio performance on an ongoing basis using reports, conversations, dashboards. I talked about the visibility and the auditing techniques ensure that the effectiveness of the portfolio is there along with the efficiency to maintain that strategic alignment, which makes every sense today when you look at these words and their expectations, because you continue to report things, right? You report things, you keep capturing the artifacts I just talked about. You maintain records by capturing the portfolio artifacts, such as approvals, prioritizations of those, and other decisions in order to ensure the compliance with the policies, regulatory requirements, and the portfolio standards that we have, or at least they have mentioned there in your fourth edition of the standard I gave you, right? So you see that? So I suppose all of this is alignment, and the resources have to be used in the right manner, and that brings in the allocation or reallocation of the capacity in terms of people, materials, tools, technologies, financials, facilities. So this has to be understood with reference to the scenarios that we have and whether we are in line with them or not. And the risk, I'm a risk management professional as well. As risk is one of my passions, because risk comes in everywhere, like whether you're at level of CAPM, PMP, PGMP, PfMP, doesn't matter. So that's why there is a dedicated certification actually of risk now. But this is like more on the concept of the higher levels down, right? Portfolio risk management flows down to programs and to projects and so on, the components that is there. But there are therefore the governance thread is common, the processes, the procedures. There is this algorithm I call the core atom, like in an atom, nucleus is the core. So what is the core of risk management? I call that IAR. There are many things that you will learn, like, from my angle. This is Astad angle, not there in the books right now. When I write my book, maybe I can discuss that. But IAR means identify, assess, respond. This is the core thing about risks. You have to identify the risk. You have to assess those risks and then respond accordingly. Okay, you can't just be trigger happy on things like that. Because remember, the resources are limited. So we have to understand that. And the risk can be positive as well. That's why they're saying capitalize on the opportunities, because the opportunities are called the positive risk. So you respond to risk accordingly. And there are across the portfolio, there are components and there are these endeavors, and they have their interdependencies, and we got to do the decisions accordingly and make sure we understand that part. And there is a portfolio level risk register. Risk register is a generic term. Anytime you think about what is threatening, for example, your project in terms of time, cost, quality, and scope. There are 4 objectives of a project: T, C, S, and Q. Time, cost, scope, quality. Time, cost, scope, quality. Even if you're in your dreams, don't forget this. Good, very, very good handy tip to you for your interviews. You can make a story out of that. If they ask you, oh, you are a risk, you are a project manager, what are your thoughts on the risk? You remember Asad, IAR. And then you talk. And you say, well, sir, because the risk might be impacting in positive, negative manner, and they impact on the objectives. What are the 4 objectives of the effort that you do? Well, I have to make sure I finish it in time. I have to ensure that I finish it in cost. I have to ensure that I stick to the scope I am going to do it in. And I have to make sure that I have the quality right. Okay? TCS plus Q. Okay. So that's about risk. And therefore, you will maintain this risk register at the portfolio level as well. And understanding of ownership of the risk should be there too, because somebody has to make the risk owners. Like you have project, you have your areas of work, You make risk owners for hardware, software testing and all that. You can have different components and you can have portfolio risk involved with that, and you can communicate with those guys and let them know what they should be looking out for, so that your overall risk on your portfolio, you have to safeguard your babies, and that you should do. No harm there.